When we look at our directions for Work Together 4-3, they look extremely similar to what we did for 4-2. In the fact at the top it says, Leonard Witowski owns a service businesses and uses the following accounts. So then we have all of these accounts listed there. And then right here on the bottom, it says post the special amount column totals. Yesterday, we went through and posted individually. And posting individually means working from the top of our journal down and only using the amounts in our general column. Because this $5,000 right here as a general credit is not tied to any account. This $5,000 in cash debit, we know, goes to cash. There is no account called general. Our sales and our cash columns are called special columns, and they're special because they have an account title on the top. So we worked our way down from the top to the bottom. We went through and put in our post reference, and the process of how we post is as important as getting it done. The last step we always did is went from our journal back up to our ledger, from our ledger back up to our journal and put our account number on there, because then we did the next line down, next line down, next line down. I don't want to see anyone going through and just filling in these numbers and then going to the bottom, because that doesn't help you. Journal, ledger, from ledger back to journal. That's the proper way of posting. What we do today is we're going to look at our totals. We have special columns because we know that these are accounts that we use often, and it's important that we have that number. So when I look at this journal and I see this total right here for sales credit of $838, that's important to me. That tells me for the month of March, I had $838 in sales. That's powerful. I make decisions. I plan for things based on what I know I'm going to be receiving. I also know for the month of March that I paid out $2,085. That's the amount of cash that went out of my business. I also have in here that the amount of cash that I'm receiving is $5,775. When we look at those numbers, that tells us I actually had more money coming into the business. Can I see your planner, please? Than I did having going out of the business. Would you agree, these two numbers? May there be a month where we have more money going out than coming in? Okay, think about it. Think about the Thunder Zone. If I pay for my homecoming shirts in September, but I don't start selling them until October, September is going to have a lot of cash out because I had a big bill. But what's going to happen in October then? We're going to sell a lot more. We're going to have an increased amount of sales because of a special item. Now, when we take a look at retail stores, let's think about Toys R Us. When do you think Toys R Us is busy? Probably starting about now, right? People are getting ready to go holiday shopping. So do you think that they're busier in November and December than they may be in April and May? They're going to know that number from their sales journal and their totals, and they have to plan for it. Do they need to have extra workers? Yeah. You've all been in those businesses where they don't have enough people there to check you out and you have to wait. How does that make you feel? A little frustrated? You go to Walmart, they have 20 aisles and only 2 of them are open. You got to wait for 10 minutes? You've been there. So this allows our business to operate in more of a functional manner by having our special columns. And also, think about it. Every time you post, there's a possibility of you making a mistake. Would you agree? And we can see that sales in this month, this business just started, so we only had 2 sales, but hopefully a business is going to have more than 2 sales in a month. Would you agree? So every time you make a post, it's going to go through and you have an opportunity for making a mistake. So again, we want to use special columns for accounts that are going to be used often. It gives us information to make decisions. So when we post our totals from left to right. So, can I post this $2,326? No, because I already posted it, didn't I? Individually, I posted these into the accounts. The other reason that you're going to say no is I don't have an account called General. So therefore, I can't post this $2,326 anywhere because there's no account called General that has a debit balance. Same thing for credit. Now, because we don't have an account called General, I need to put something underneath here so it doesn't look like I skipped it. For the same reason, when we journalize this transaction, we put a check mark in the post reference. If we left it blank, it would look like you forgot to do something. So what we do below, we put in parentheses a check mark. And there is no check mark key on our computer, so we're going to use the letter V. Does that make sense? So right now this is done for us already, but in the future it may not, so be aware that we put a check mark here just to make our lives a little bit easier. So we're going to go ahead and post our sales here as a credit. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit and find my ledger account for sales. Posting your totals is exactly the same as posting your individual amount. I'm going to put in the month, put in the date, and what is the date for my total? 31st. How'd you know that? I looked right here. Total said the 31st. Also, don't forget that you need to know how many days are in a month. Is it 30 or 31? I told you that little knuckle trick. What is my post reference here, Bryce? Why? When I look here in my journal, it's the first page, exactly. Now, sales, am I affecting it as a debit or a credit? Credit, because that's what the column says, sales credit. So I'm going to go here and do 838 as a credit. Previously, my balance was 0, so now I have a balance of 838 as a credit. My last step is always to take my account number, go back up here and post it, and again, I need to put it in parentheses, 410. Now, why does it need to be parentheses? Anyone want to guess? What if I didn't put parentheses here? What would it look like? It would look like $410, right? And we don't want it to look like an amount value affecting it. We want it to just be our account number. So we always put down here in our columns, if it is a post reference number, in parentheses to make it stand out so it's clear that it's not money value. Now we're going to do the same thing to cash. So it is very important that you post from left to right. So in cash, we have to put our date on here of March 31st, post reference of the 1 because of what Bryce said. We're using page 1. And now I am doing cash debit first. If you do cash credit first, Apply is going to mark you wrong. Move from left to right. So I'm going to have a debit here of $5,775. Previously I had a 0 balance, so if I take 0 plus a debit of $5,775, it's going to give me a debit balance of $5,775. Now, this account right here is really, really easy to make a mistake typing. And I want to say this because on Monday I'm not going to be here, and you're going to have a section on doing correcting entries that you'll have to watch. And basically what happens with correcting entries is there was a mistake and you have to go back and fix it. But when I go through and type in 5,775, it's really easy for someone to type 5,755. Same numbers, but you just switched it instead of 75 to 55. And sometimes that's a really hard number to see because you look real quick and it could be a mistake there. So always make sure you slow down and put them in correct. So I put 110 back up under my cash debit. Now I have to do my cash credit. This is no different than what we did yesterday when we posted multiple times to our accounts receivable or accounts payable. Put the date of the 31st, post reference of 1. and I'm going to go through and credit it $2,085. How do I determine the balance, Dylan?
I'll subtract them.
Why?
Because one's a debit, one's a credit.
Yes. 2 debits, you add. 2 credits, you add. A debit and a credit, you would subtract. Is it going to have a debit or a credit balance? Why?
Bigger number.
Bigger number. The debit is larger than the credit. Why else? Normal balance. What account is this? Cash. Cash is an asset. Assets need to have a debit normal balance, which is why we do T accounts all the time. So you can tell me the normal balance. You can tell me the increase side. You can tell me the decrease side of all of our different accounts. So when I do that, I get a balance of $3,690. Anyone agree? Sometimes I make math mistakes. And then I put 410 back up on top. So is posting the totals any different than posting it individually? No. Now, what I need you to realize is this month very long in the number of transactions. You are going to find that you will have assignments coming up where your journal page is going to be a little bit longer. Does that make sense? You are going to find that you'll have an assignment that you actually need to journalize and then post. And here's the thing. It may give you 5 transactions to journalize. It may say March 1st, March 7th, March 10th, March 12th. And then right below March 12th, it may say post the individual amounts. It's really important that you post when it tells you to post. So don't skip over it and say, oh, I'll do that later. When we do posting, we start at the top and work down, and then at the end of the month, you're going to post your totals. Now, typically, I would say you should not go through and post anything until you know your debits and credits equal. Because is it possible for you to have 2 credits on your journal column if you made a mistake? And then if you don't catch it, then you post it, and then you have to go back and fix things. So just giving you that as a heads up. Now, this cash account right here, this balance, $3,690, is like what we did in the last chapter when you proved cash. Think about it. How did we prove cash? What's the first thing we had to have? It was always 0. Remember at the bottom of the page, journalizing, there's those series of lines they had to fill in right below where you prove debits and credits. What was the first line? How much cash you started with, right? So, do we know what our beginning cash balance was when I look here? What was it? 0. We had nothing. Leave the balls where they're supposed to be. Accounting 2. Our beginning cash balance was 0. Would you agree? There was nothing there. And then what did we do to it? We added the amount of cash we received. We subtracted the amount of cash we paid. So this is our new balance of cash. This number right here, the 3,690, needs to equal the amount on the next unused check stub. So they're not necessarily going to give you that spot at the bottom to prove cash, but you would know if cash is proved correctly by comparing the amount on the next unused check stub with this number. Does that make sense? Go ahead and try on your own, please.